whereas women finds 8s to be 5s, 7s, 9s to be 7s, and there's only one 10. It's Drake and like Chris Hemsworth. Those are the only 10s that exist, right? The online dating thing. Did you have any issues with like terms of service? Like, how did it work? Like, what was there was a right swipe, left swipe. What was your original idea with Zoosk?
No, it was not right swipe, left swipe at the beginning. It was more about data-driven matchmaking. That was the core of the idea. So there's a ton of studies on if people can predict what they're looking for in a mate, and how uncorrelated what they think they're looking for is to who they actually end up with.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it was like, okay, so instead of having a form at the time, all online dating sites, they had forms. So you went and filled out, I'm looking for blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So we were like, none of that. So let's just take your data, who you approach, who approaches back to you, and then put that in a model and just try to predict who's the best match for you.
Wow.
So we called it behavioral matchmaking. So,
Incredible.
Yeah, we were
Very
kind
cool.
of pioneer in that.
Very nice. Now you see a lot of those dating sites, and it's just like short-term hookup.
Yeah, I know.
And like every year, the girls on there it gets worse and worse because women like don't want to be on this, and it's like 6-to-1 guys to girl ratio on some of these websites. It's really weird how that whole eco structure. It started off kind of being 50-50, and then just it went on to where it's like very difficult to use some of those apps.
Almost all women have a bad experience, and 80% of men have a bad experience.
Isn't that
20% of men are doing great.
Yeah. So that it's interesting that you bring that up. So the recent survey, Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge, they talked about 80% of men deemed unattractive on dating apps. The top 10% of men on a dating app. So if you stratify by right swipes, they get 63% of the right swipes. I mean, if you guys know anything about stats, that's ridiculous. Like that's
ridiculous.
That's an absurdly high number.
Yeah.
The top 20% get 83%. So that's 1.5 standard deviations that go to 20% of men.
Right.
But when you compare it to women, or when you compare it to men, the top 63% of right swipes for men go to 43% of women. So men do still have a little bit of like, inflation. So like if you live in San Diego or Los Angeles, a girl who might be an 8 in Waco, Texas is like a 6 in Las Vegas. For sure, you're going to have a little bit of that. But for the most part, men find 5s to be 5s, 6 to be 6s, 7s to be 7s, whereas women finds 8s to be 5s, 7s, 9s to be 7s, and there's only one 10. It's Drake and like Chris Hemsworth. Those are the only 10s that exist, right? It's one of these things where social media has made it to where a lot of women, where they date one movie star and then eventually, or they sleep with one movie star and then they compare every man they date to that because they had access to it because of social media. And then it just makes, I was reading somewhere at 6,000 swipes to get one date for a woman, some crazy number like that. And the vast majority of women on these dating apps are not even going on dates. They're just doing it for attention or to get people to go down their OnlyFans funnel so that they can get subscribers.
Instagram, OnlyFans, yeah.
It's pretty amazing how that whole thing changed. It was very like, when it first started, it was very like, people had a very positive idea of how this was going to work and like change the idea of dating. But like it actually, it still has some positivity to it. But I think Instagram's probably the biggest dating app in the world now.